prophecy of 1,000-year bread. The warning and the foreshadow of the 1,000 years of bread and water are shown and revealed throughout the scriptures. And looking to the foreshadows that show this, it's very clear that there will be a time during the 1,000 years that there will be no rain for those who do not come and worship the Lord, which means there will be famines. So there will be no water and there will be famines. The staff of bread will be broken for those people who do not come up and worship the Lord year by year. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 65, verse 12 and 13, it says, "Therefore will I number you to the sword, and you shall all bow down to the slaughter, because when I called, you did not answer. When I spake, you did not hear, but did evil before mine eyes, and did choose that wherein I delighted not. Therefore thus saith the Lord God, Behold, my servants shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servants shall drink, but you shall be thirsty. Behold, my servants shall rejoice, but you shall be ashamed." The church gathers from the nations, immigrating out of the nations to gather for another Exodus, where they will go out into the wilderness for 42 months. They will have bread and water given to them. But the nations will not have the rain. And this is a prophetic foreshadow of what will occur in the 1,000-year reign of Christ. Zechariah chapter 14 verse 16 says, "And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles." Make a note here, because this shows that the heathen are on the earth during the 1,000-year reign. In verse 17 it says, "And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain." The families of the earth refuse to come and honor the remembrance of the tabernacle feast. What is a tabernacle feast? Well, the people of God had to immigrate and leave all the nations, go out and dwell in tents, and they didn't, where the nations didn't have rain. Well, the nations on Christ's return will need to immigrate out of the nations and go to Jerusalem and worship the King, or they won't get rain. And they will remember that Feast of the Tabernacles, just like the people of God in the last 42 months, the 1,260 days during the next Exodus to Petra. The people will be in tents, in tabernacles. In the following verse afterwards, it says in verse 18, "And if the family of Egypt go not up, and come not, that have no rain. There shall be the plague wherewith the Lord shall smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Egypt, and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles." All of the nations will not have rain unless they come and migrate and go to Jerusalem to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, to honor the people in the tents, to remember that, or they won't get rain during the 1,000 years. And it's very clear. But the people who do will have bread and water. And in the following verses of Revelation 21, verse 24 through 26, it says, "By its light will the nations walk, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. And its gates will never be shut by day, and there will be no night there. They will bring into it the glory and the honor of the nations." We see that the nations will be coming to Jerusalem in order to bring offerings and worship to the Lord during that annual Feast of Tabernacles. And it also explains in the Bible that there's unclean people who do not keep the law, who are not permitted to enter into the city. Revelation chapter 21 verse 27 says, "But nothing unclean will ever enter it, nor anyone who does that what is detestable or false, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life." And this statement is not made as if though it's just confusion. The city is Jerusalem during the millennial reign, and the people that are outside this city are the heathen nations, and the people who refuse to obey the commandments of God and the laws of God. In the book of Revelation, chapter 22, verse 14 and 15, it says, "Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. You ask, how are the heathen nations on earth during the millennial reign of Christ? Well, clearly he's stating that they're unclean people on the outside of the city. And they are the grapes that are spared during the harvest. Revelation chapter 14, 17 through 19 talks about the harvest, the grape harvest of the earth. And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, which had power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. So we see that there are some grapes of the cluster that are spared and allowed to go into the millennial kingdom, into the 1,000 years. Isaiah chapter 65 verse 8 further confirms this. It says, Thus saith the Lord, as the new wine is found in the cluster, and one saith, Destroy it not, for a blessing is in it, so will I do for my servants' sake, that I may not destroy them all. And what tabernacle is God going to dwell in? Well, look what it says in the prophecy, that he will be with us, and the tabernacle of God will be with us. Revelation 21 verse 3 and 4. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. So in that prophecy, you notice that it says that there's no more weeping and crying in Jerusalem, because God's tabernacle is with them, right? In that verse. Look at this verse. It says that there will be no more weeping and no more crying, and he'll wipe away all the tears from the eyes. Well, this is exactly what it's talking about during the prophecies of Isaiah chapter 65. Following the same verses that we just covered. In Isaiah chapter 65 verse 19 it says, And I will rejoice in Jerusalem, and joy in my people, and the voice of weeping shall be no more heard in her, nor the voice of crying. And continuing on with these verses, at the same time we see the statement about the longevity of the lifespans that are talked about during the millennial reign. Isaiah 65 verse 20 says, There shall be no more thence an infant of days, nor an old man that hath not filled his days. For the child shall die 100 years old, but the sinner being 100 years old shall be accursed. This is talking about the extended lifespan of people during the 1,000-year reign. It's talking about sinners continuing on but being cursed, because they haven't repented. They haven't had their name written in the Lamb's Book of Life. They refuse to go and worship the King and keep his laws during the 1,000 years. And we know that these are the same people during that period, because during the 1,000 years, it says in the book of Revelation that the Gog and Magog will occur after the 1,000 years. And we know that there's nations there during that period. Revelation chapter 20, verse 7 and 8 says, And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. So we see right here that there's the nations and the offspring who enter into the 1,000 years, who refuse to worship Christ, who refuse to come up year for year, who refuse to obey the commandments. After the 1,000 years, Satan is loosed and tricks them to come and try to sack Jerusalem. They've not had rain. Many of those people who refuse to come up and worship the Lord during that 1,000 years, they don't have rain. They're angry. They're like, hey, we're going to take over this guy, and we're going to put a stop to this and get our reign back, right? And they get deceived by Satan. They get destroyed. In the following verse, in verse 9, it says, And they went up to the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. So they surround the city of Jerusalem, they get killed. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. And this is where the devil is thrown into the lake of fire. And at this point, we see the great white throne. Revelation chapter 20, verse 11 says, And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. So after that 1,000 years, those nations that get brought into the 1,000-year reign, some of those people refuse to bow their knee to Christ, to come to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. They don't get rain. They go through famines during that period. And this is why they end up fighting against Christ after the 1,000 years and get sealed up into the lake of fire. And this is why it prophetically foreshadows the bread and the water for the people of God who obey God throughout the last 5,000 years. And all of the prophecies and the teachings and the Exodus and the wilderness and the journeyings into the wilderness and the next Exodus that occurs and people going out into tents, it's all a foreshadow to tell the people that if you don't do this during the reign of Christ, you're not going to have rain. You will not have bread and water. You'll have famines and no rain if you do not migrate out to worship the Lord and come to keep His Feast of Tabernacles year after year for those 1,000 years. There will be 1,000 Feasts of Tabernacles that will be kept and sacrifices in the city for that 1,000 years. Zechariah chapter 14 verse 16 through 17 says, "And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of the nations," left of what nations? All the nations that were subdued by Christ on His return, "which come against Jerusalem shall even go up year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain." Families of the earth who refuse to come, that continue on in their paganism, that continue on in their lawlessness, they're going to be permitted to do so. They'll see the righteous rule of Christ, but they will have no rain. They will not have rain for their crops. They will not have bread and water like the people of God. And those families, in verse 18 it says, "And if the family of Egypt go not up, and come not, that will have no rain. There shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles." And this is a reminder for the coming Exodus, where we gather all of the people out of the nations to gather at Jerusalem, to go on the next Exodus into tents. That the people who do not come now, when we call, you will not have rain for 1,260 days. You will have no bread and water. You will thirst with the nations. And this is a prophetic foreshadow of what will occur when Christ returns for 1,000 years to solidify that promise. So come. Come and get bread and water. Pledge your allegiance to the banner and come. Raise the standard, raise the banner, and come with us. And we will have another Exodus. We will go out into the tents. We will go into the wilderness for those 42 months. And we will have bread and water. And this is the prophecy of bread for 1,000 years.